Here we are at the end of Unit 2. At the beginning, you saw the National Geographic documentary about Jared Diamond, or that Jared Diamond had done Guns, Germs, and Steel, and you've since then written your paper. You'll be hearing back from us on those as well. And then we had 2 sections in the unit on the environment and sustainability, issues such as that in the current period, and then another section on particular issues of women and girls and their particular vulnerability and the role that they play in hunger and poverty issues around the world.
One thing I'd like to bring up, you'll notice that in Guns, Germs, and Steel, Jared Diamond talked a lot about soil and the importance of soil, and I tried to touch upon that in the lecture on the environment and talking about how farming techniques are really important, how the proliferation of trees or the placement of rocks, or even simple things like paying attention to how we're going to build buildings in a city, or planting a tree or a garden or landscaping can fairly drastically over time impact the ability of that land to provide food for future generations. So I think it's important to notice these recurring themes, because as you go throughout this course, we're going to continually build upon them. And particularly when we go into Unit 3, which is about hunger in the 21st century. So we're going to bring you forward. We've tried to really paint a picture of basic hunger constructs. You've just finished the unit on the history of hunger, and now we're going to bring you into what does hunger look like today and look at who are the major players. But before we do that, we'd like to show you some of the samples from the school feeding program that Professor Coutts talked about in his lecture on women and girls.
When I was talking about the school feeding programs, and I think I mentioned in particular the role of the private sector, especially in Asia, there's a situation here where these are the biscuits now that we produce in Bangladesh through a partnership that we have with the private sector. These cost us roughly 10 US cents to produce. We buy them then commercially from the companies, and we provide them in the school feeding program. The child receives these at his desk in the morning. Typically, they come to school, of course, without having had breakfast. So it's I say school lunch, but often it's more of a school snack or school breakfast program, where we want to make sure that the students have a bit of food before they even start school.
Yeah,
so
we mentioned that in Unit 1, where if a child comes to school hungry, they can't pay attention,
exactly.
They have behavioral problems, they're more susceptible to disease.
Right. And you have to assume that they're coming to school probably without having much food to begin with in the morning. As I say, these cost us about 10 cents then to produce, and there's 800 calories in these, and 80% of a child's nutritional requirement, all those micronutrients and vitamins that I talked about, are here, just in one pack for only 10 cents. Very equivalent to what I mentioned at the end of the last unit with the school feeding program, like in Africa, where we've got to bring all the ingredients together, and the women in the community will prepare the food at the school. This is the same kind of thing. This will be about 25 cents that it'll cost us. It's a lot more cost, but the same idea. And the child gets these either one at their desk, and they have to consume all of it right there. Oftentimes they want to stick a bit in their shirt and take it home and share it with the siblings, but of course that defeats the purpose. And this is all it takes. It's just for pennies a day over years, we can make a huge difference.
I think one of the important things to note is that as you guys, or as the World Food Program rolls out these feeding programs, you also roll out educational programs. So you're teaching, if you're working with pregnant women, you're teaching the women, no, you really need to eat these calories, and this food is for you specifically. And they teach them, not to deprive their children, but we teach that, or the World Food Program teaches the women, no, these calories are specifically manufactured for your pregnant body, or for your child's body, so that the right nutrients are getting to the right people at the right time.
Indeed, right. We also keep, as part of that thought, we also keep the sugar content very low, so that it's not seen to be like a candy or a cookie kind of thing, but that it's almost like medicine, and it's for you, and it's only for you, and there's good things in here that are going to make a difference in your life. Oftentimes you don't need to go into much more detail than that, but they see that this is something beyond food. It's very important what's in here. I also mentioned in the discussion on breaking the intergenerational cycle of hunger. We will be talking in the next units about different interventions and different programs and operations that are designed to cut that link. And I talked extensively about school feeding. We'll also be talking about what we call MCH, maternal child health programs. And oftentimes when we find infants are extremely malnourished, we have another product which we use, which has become very, very popular, called Plumpy Nut, which is a peanut butter, peanut-based product. Like this. That's what it looks like. It's just like a tube, and you can squeeze it out like toothpaste. And again, the same idea. This has all the micronutrients that the child requires for that day, just in the pack. And one of these can make a huge difference from day to day. And we find that they very, very quickly respond with this type of highly packed, densely packed, micronutrient fortified food. In this case, peanut butter. And all kids like peanut butter, it seems. It's a universal taste.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the important things to note, too, is when you're a child, particularly in a devastated country that is suffering from malnutrition, day-to-day matters. I mean, it can be the difference between life and death.
Indeed.
You know, if you think about yourself, if you've ever gotten a stomach flu, you know, if your water levels go down, you have to go to the hospital, get IVs within, 24 to 36 hours, or else you run the risk of becoming dehydrated. And so then you compound a situation like that with malnutrition, and I mean, these kids are literally on the pinnacle between living and dying, and so getting them these, things like Plumpy Nut can make that life or death difference.
And makes a huge difference. And it's a very fragile life, and they're very small bodies, and they go very, very quickly unless you can address those basic needs quickly. Indeed. We'll be talking more about these different kinds of interventions and options when we get more into the current situation in this century and the various operations that we have to remedy these situations. So stay tuned.
Yes.